Billy Stone, any truth to the Micah Patriots stuff? Well, I don't even know if I'm going to put this on a future video. The answer is no. It stems from essentially a Patriots blog being like, they've got cap space. Like, I'm sure, honestly, all 32 teams probably are monitoring the Micah and Watt stuff. Not for a trade. Those guys aren't going to get traded. But for, like, how does the market change? It's not anything to be afraid about. Like, the deal is going to get done. It's a matter of when and how much it costs them. But I do believe in democracy here. So what would you do with Micah Parsons? T for trade, K for keep. Let me know in the comments of today's show. Of note, we are still doing the Micah Parsons decision pool. You pick the date Micah signs or is traded. Can Venmo me at Going Downey. $5 to get in. And we'll do a 50-50.
It is Unsportsmanlike, presented by Progressive Insurance. And guys, to revisit what Canty was talking about yesterday, that call that we just heard, what it was alluding to, you, Freddie Coleman, and Chris Canty, who's normally here with me here on Unsportsmanlike alongside Evan Cohen, were having a conversation about Jaden Daniels. And here's what Canty had to say about where he is currently and where he could get to.
Jaden Daniels, if he does get into the top 5 quarterbacks in the National Football League, and I get that that's a big if, but if he does get in, the guy that we're worried about being pushed out or being replaced ain't Jalen Hurts. It's Joe Burrow. That's the guy. Jalen Hurts has established himself in this league. Jalen Hurts has been to 2 Super Bowls. Jalen Hurts beat Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl. He's got a ring. I've seen it from Jalen Hurts. We have yet to see it from Joe Burrow. Remember, I said you judge greatness in this league by a few different things. Championship rings, all pros, and MVPs. Joe Burrow ain't got none of that.
Okay, Canty saying Joe Burrow could be the one on the outside looking in if Jaden Daniels continues to have success and jumps into the top 5 as far as NFL quarterbacks are concerned. So, Harry, we think about the magical rookie season that Jaden Daniels had. He took the Washington Commanders, who were a 4-win team, to the NFC Championship game. He threw for 3,500 yards. He had a 70.6 QBR, which was 4th in this league. First and foremost, do you expect Jaden Daniels to be able to repeat what he did his rookie year? And if so, would you put him in that top 5 quarterback conversation?
I expect Jaden Daniels to be better than he was in his rookie year. And think about all the things he was able to accomplish. You talk about over 3,500 yards, 25 touchdowns, and 9 interceptions. When you have the ability to convert 4th downs, and your offensive coordinator, your head coach, and everyone in your organization do not blink an eye when a 4th down has come about. They converted 87%, y'all. Think about how insane that is. They went to an NFC Championship game, and I said yesterday on Freddie and Harry that Jaden Daniels carried the Washington Commanders. We had a caller call in and said, I don't think he carried the Washington Commanders. And I asked him, did he have cable? Because I thought very differently dial-up from that capacity. But this is a guy that I have as my top guy from an MVP standpoint going into 2025. And it's just because he's cerebral, he's cool, calm, and collected. He's a leader. He does everything he's supposed to do. You don't hear any nonsense off the field. He's locked in, and that's what you want from your quarterback. And he doesn't shy away from the biggest moments. We've seen at any given time, they're never out of a ball game because he's at the quarterback position. And it wasn't his fault. And it's very surprisingly, right, Jaden Daniels being a rookie quarterback last year, it wasn't his fault that they didn't win the NFC Championship game. It was the veterans that didn't back the rookie quarterback up. So I expect him to be better in 2025 and also win the MVP.
I hear you on that one, Harry, but here's something that Jaden Daniels is about to find out that Jordan Love found out in 2024. It's one thing to be the hunter, but how will you handle being the hunted? Because we saw that didn't work out well early on for Jordan Love. It didn't work out late because all the expectations coming in after what he did in that playoff run with the Green Bay Packers, how he played the second half of the season. I know he had the injury early in the Brazil game versus the Philadelphia Eagles, but he never seemed to get right after that. And I thought he put too much pressure on himself with those kind of expectations trying to bounce back from that injury. In other words, it is very, very hard when you have that sort of crown on your head, and that crown is going to be very uneasy on your head. Jayden Daniels, as terrific as he was last year, and Harry, I'm with you. He's going to be a better quarterback because experience and his ability and his leadership. But now, for the first time since Joe Gibbs, the head coach of Washington, we look at the Washington Commanders and its organization differently, where all of a sudden they're now circled on schedules. We better watch out for Washington. Nobody was saying that last year, even though they had that great season, that great end of the season. But now everybody knows who they are. How will he handle that, and how can he raise everybody else's level to deal with that? I can't wait to see that regarding 2025 in Washington with
now,
the Commanders.
Freddie Coleman, just wait a minute for a second. Just wait. See, everybody think on Freddie and Harry that we agree on everything. No, that's not the case, ladies and gentlemen.
We don't.
That's not the case at all. See, I'm not going to let you compare Jayden Daniels and Jordan Love.
Okay.
See, one of the guys came into the National Football League being the man, winning the Heisman Trophy. That's Jayden Daniels. One of the guys had to try to become the man, sitting behind Aaron Rodgers, and it took him forever to get acclimated to the system and whole nine. But you give Jordan Love credit because he was able to do so. But I think it's apples to oranges when you look at the two quarterbacks. I don't think it's in comparison.
Sure, you can say apples to oranges, but the expectations are going to be the same regarding Jayden Daniels in year 2 as a starting quarterback, the same way the expectations were there in year 2 when Jordan Love's a starting quarterback. Because for a while there in Green Bay, they didn't know if he was going to be the guy that first time he had a chance to be a starting quarterback. And then what did he do the final 8-9 games of the regular season? He was tearing the league apart, and then he tore the Dallas Cowboys apart, and they were the better team in the first half against the San Francisco 49ers with the Green Bay Packers. The increased expectations, Harry, and you know this. When you have that kind of success as a young quarterback early, everybody's going to expect more. Everybody expected more out of Jordan Love and didn't get it, even though the Packers made the playoffs. Now, I can't even imagine the expectations are going to be on Jayden Daniels, and they got the NFC Championship game, to your point, he carried this football team and got there. Now you're getting everybody else's best shot. The way Jordan Love had to deal with that, it didn't land well for him, and he had a better team going into last year, in my opinion, than Jayden Daniels has this year, going into this year with the Washington Commanders.
Well,
that's why I believe in Jayden Daniels. All the points that you just made, Freddie Coleman, exactly why I have faith in my guy, Jayden Daniels, to win MVP for 2025.
Your guy, huh?
And try to take this team to the promised land.
Your guy, huh?
Well, a guy that fills both of those buckets, who, as you said, Harry, came into the league as the guy in college football, and as Freddie, you just outlined, came into the league and still was that guy, taking his team to the Super Bowl early, was Joe Burrow. And the other part of that bite from Canty is that if Jayden Daniels does continue on this pace and jumps into the top 5 quarterbacks, is it Joe Burrow on the outside looking in? And guys, last year, 4,918 yards, 43 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, a 74.7 QBR, which was 3rd in the league. We know that Joe Burrow historically has started out slow, but boy, did he turn it on last year. If he doesn't have the team success, but he continues to have the individual success, is that a situation where you say he's on the outside looking in?
I would say this. When I look at a guy like Joe Burrow, if their defense was 21st or 22nd in the National Football League, we're having a different conversation about Joe Burrow. We really are. And the difference between Jalen Hurts and the Joe Burrow, the Philadelphia Eagles had the number 1 defense. They had the best offensive line. They had the best running back in football last season. And you have the top 2 duo at the wide receiver position. Now, I'm not sitting up here making excuses for Joe Burrow, but you're talking about a guy that has also carried a franchise since becoming the starting quarterback there. Whenever you have someone that is sacked 8 or 9 times in a football game and the body language doesn't change, he's still cool, calm, and collected, and he finds a way to win that football game. And I get it, folks. It's been a while ago, but Joe Burrow was phenomenal last season.
He was.
Yes.
And if his defense was a tiny bit better, we're talking about the Cincinnati Bengals making the playoffs, in which I felt like last year, everyone and their mama did not want them to make the playoffs because we knew what would have happened.
Absolutely.
Nah, I'm with you. Nah, I don't know. We'll never know. You know me. Harry knows me well. Michelle, you know me well. I don't play hypotheticals, but Harry, to your point, this is what happens when you have an organization failing their quarterback. That's why I call them the cheap and natty Bengals. They spend the money in the right places, they think, but not in the right place where they should when it comes to Trey Hendrickson. This should not be carried over in the training camp involving this team, but we've seen this with the history of the cheap and natty Bengals before. Joe Burrow will have his organization fail him, before he fails the organization, because anytime they make a right move, they make two wrong moves that set him and this organization back from being the kind of team that they're supposed to be, especially in the loaded AFC.
Now, also, let me say this, right? I do think it's important for Joe Burrow because the Cincinnati Bengals have not made the playoffs the last 2 years. You have to make the playoffs in 2025.
Oh,
you
have to.
Yeah. That's fair. But if he has a great season and the defense fails him, you can't put all that on Joe Burrow, the body didn't make the playoffs. I think that conversation needs to go away regarding him.
Well, we're talking about Joe Burrow having a lot of pressure on his shoulders, Jaden Daniel having a lot of pressure in his sophomore season. But when it comes to pressure and quarterbacks in the NFL, is Caleb Williams actually number one on that list? And if he's not, who is? We're going to discuss that next. But first, Freddie has this from ESPN.